What's up, fight fans? This is Kurt DeVille with Counterpunch Boxing News, and I have some new news concerning Frank Warren. Frank Warren slams the criticism and calls it ridiculous and stupid over the Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder COVID postponement, and he responds to Eddie Hearn. Frank Warren has told Talk Sports that he's not paying much attention to backlash after Tyson Fury's trilogy fight with Deontay Wilder was postponed. The heavyweights, of course, were due to fight in July the 24th this weekend. However, Fury tested positive for the coronavirus and now must wait until October 9th. Now, back in May, most thought that Fury was going to fight Joshua. Then Wilder won his arbitration case to force Fury into a third bout with him, and the undisputed showdown collapsed, a major disappointment for British boxing. Fury's team quickly organized the Wilder trilogy, but this latest delay has backlash written all over it from fans and others. Asked about this fight night, Warren replied, "Well, it's ridiculous. What backlash can you have over that? A judge ordered a fight and he's got COVID. What's he supposed to do? He wouldn't be allowed to fight even if he wanted. He does want to. Everybody's frustrated and the fighters are more frustrated. All this backlash, as you say, trolling, whatever, it's ridiculous and it's stupid." The rival promoter, Eddie Hearn, has suggested that the Fury versus Wilder 3 had more problems than just COVID. And he told that they sold no tickets. Basically, you could go online and check. I don't know whether it was 25 or 30% of the tickets have been sold, but it's disastrous. There was no hype. This was going to do very, very poor on pay-per-view numbers. The whole thing stank, and it so disjointed everywhere. You have about 8 people working on the fight who don't like each other. Warren responded, "I see that Eddie Hearn made some comments about it. Tickets haven't sold." He said they've done about 14 million pounds worth of tickets up until the postponement. It's just rubbish. He said, okay, what happened to the article? And he said, all right, here's this, okay. Okay, here it is. He said, "Why would Bob Arum lie over the ticket sales up until that point?" Those are the words of Frank Warren. Now, obviously, to answer Frank's question, why would Bob Arum lie? Well, Bob has been caught in a few lies, a few contradicting things as much as himself. But I feel, why would he lie? He would lie because he wouldn't, if that was the case, if the reason for this fight was because of the ticket sales, who would want to really admit that? Counterpunch. Think about what I'm saying. If Frank Warren and Bob Arum, and they knew the Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder 3 fight was not doing as well, and they had to come up with some type of way out or some type of strategy to get more tickets to be sold because they needed more time, that would be the perfect thing you would do. You would, someone has to test positive for COVID. It doesn't have to be Tyson Fury. It has to be someone in his camp. In fact, there's an outbreak, okay, in his camp. And that's how it started. It started with a rumor. It started with other people, and it didn't start with Tyson Fury. Okay, it ended with Tyson Fury. Okay, and the reason why people question it is because of the fact that one moment he doesn't have it, then 9 days later, one moment he has it, then 9 days later he doesn't have it. But before that, before they even tested, he was out shaking people's hand and hugging and high-fiving and fist bumping. So even if he didn't know he had it yet, that's still no excuse for putting people's life in danger. They didn't know he didn't have it. Then who's to say he had it in the first place? Because they didn't even give the ample amount of time to quarantine before taking the test to make sure the test was accurate. So this is what I'm saying. Somebody's lying. Why? Because if I believe it was on the 5th, right? On the 5th, he took the test, right? He took the test on the 5th. On the 6th, it came back positive. Okay. So they should have took it again on the 16th, but they didn't. They took it on the 15th. That made no sense. Okay, because that's not an ample enough time to quarantine. So from the 6th to the 16th, but they took it on the 15th. They didn't even give time for it to see if it was cleared or not, because you have to give that amount of time. But here's what I'm getting at. How is it going to be negative when you haven't waited that amount of time anyway? So it had to be negative from the beginning if it was going to show a reading, because there wasn't enough time in between. Okay? That red stank all over it. BS all over it. Dog shit all over it. Okay? So if it wasn't doing good, and Eddie Hearn was right, he wasn't saying anything that somebody couldn't prove. All you had to do is go online, and we seen where the tickets. I don't know where they're at now. It doesn't even matter where they're at now. It matters with what I saw, and a lot of those tickets weren't selling. Now, Bob could have had and jacked up the prices of those tickets, but I couldn't imagine how. You know, if only 25 to 30% of those tickets sold according to the diagram of what was sold and what wasn't, how can you convince people that 14 million fucking seats were sold, or $14 million worth of seats were sold? Okay, how can you even, that doesn't even make sense. So that means that those prices had to be stupidly the amount to sell 14 million pounds of tickets. It didn't even make sense. Okay. So what Eddie was saying was, I don't even think that's the case at all, because he tested positive. He's running out, shaking people's hand. Okay, they looked at Joseph Parker. Okay, even if Joseph Parker didn't test positive like they claim he didn't now, Tyson Fury is supposed to test positive. So the whole point was, well, why is he out and about like he's doing? That made no sense. And then what they tried to do, they tried to damage control with another test of a negative reading so people won't flip out, because this motherfucker was shaking people's hands and rubbing his nose and shaking people's hands. You know how he does. And doing all that and exposing people to some type of virus out there that he's supposed to have. So you want me to believe that's not the case, is as many holes as in that shit, but you want me to believe there was $14 million and 14 million pounds worth of seats up till that point sold to debunk what you guys were talking about. Impossible. So Frank Warren, I know they're playing damage control because I know they're promoters. They want the fight to sell, but they want to give a perception of the fight selling more than is actually ever going to sell. But there is some light at the end of the tunnel, because by the time they do fight, the UK may be open to come over, and they might actually make or have that 14 million. But of course, at this point, if they're already saying that they've already made 14 million pounds, that's ever going to be exaggerated, the amount, if the UK comes over, or later on in the year, close to the new scheduled fight time anyway. So anyway, you guys tell me what you think of Frank Warren calling Eddie Hearn ridiculous and slams him for saying that the tickets weren't selling. Tell me what you think. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunch. Peace.